While in the land of PC we've all been getting excited about things like Ryzen and the 1080 Ti and Vega and so on, in the console gaming space, as well as talking about all the games and stuff that's coming out this year, we've of course been speaking a lot about the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox Scorpio. Now the Xbox Scorpio is still quite the mystery. We don't yet know even if that's its name. We don't know much about the specs, of course. We're probably going to learn all this and more at E3, but until then it's probably going to remain a mystery, and the impact it's going to have on the industry is of course going to have to be seen. Now, as I've said before, when it comes to any machine, console or PC, it really comes down to the games. You could have all the power in the world, but if there's no decent games to play on this powerful machine, then no one's really going to care. I mean, extra power is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but again, you need the games to back it up. And again, the pricing has to be right and so on. Now, we have some comments from Michael Goodman, the Director of Digital Media Strategies at Strategy Analytics, who spoke to We Write Things about the Xbox Scorpio. Now, he didn't have a huge amount to share, but I found his comments interesting, and I kind of wanted to use it as a springboard, as a bit of a discussion about the Scorpio. I think as well as the games lineup, what's truly going to be critical is how the power of Scorpio is actually demonstrated. And kind of on this point, Goodman said, quote, "From a purely technical standpoint, this is the first time Microsoft will have ever had the most powerful console in the marketplace. It's really going to be interesting to see what they've been able to do." Now, of course, when it comes to showcasing the gameplay, obviously, you want to be able to have those impressive sounding numbers. Excuse me, apparently I forgot to put my phone on silent. Do forgive me there. But you want to be able to say these big, impressive numbers in your marketing like 4K and so on. That's obviously why Sony went with 4K for the PS4 Pro, because that sounds more impressive than, yeah, we've got some more frames, even though out of the two, I know which one I prefer, and of course it's the frame rate, as I've said many times. So obviously getting across this power of the Scorpio is going to be pretty critical. You can't really show 4K really in all its glory over a live stream or a press conference or whatever. But you can say, look, this is the game running on Xbox One or whatever, 30 frames per second, and here's it running at 60 or what have you, and you can kind of do a comparison perhaps. It's definitely going to be difficult to communicate the difference between the two. You know, talking pure specs is great for you and I who are into the technical aspects of everything gaming, but obviously they want to be speaking to everybody. And of course it will really be down to developers to showcase the power of the machine, while of course still making their game playable on Xbox One, because that is something that Microsoft has been promising from the start. Now what's interesting here is that Michael doesn't actually expect the Scorpio to be that incredible on launch, and he said, quote, "It is third or fourth generation titles that should really be able to show the difference. My expectation is that the launch titles on Scorpio aren't going to be that much more amazing than what you'll find elsewhere. It's going to be a year or two down the road when you start to see the true capability of the platform." Now, it's not exactly wrong to say that it does take developers time to get used to a new console generation, you know, find out all the intricacies of the hardware, the tips and tricks that you need to do to pull out more performance, you know, the corners that you might have to cut to have a game look the way you want and still perform well, that sort of thing. But a year or two? I mean, I think that would actually be pretty bad if we're only truly seeing the power of the console after 1 or 2 years. I would hope that we would start to see that within the first year, maybe the end of the first year, so then you really start getting the games. I mean, you could argue for a lot of the past consoles, you didn't really start to see true, like, sort of PS3 games, just for example, until like the midpoint of its life cycle. But that was a very difficult console to develop for. The PS4 and obviously Xbox One, that's not the case. It's very PC-like architecture, much easier to develop for and obviously port from and to. So I don't expect the learning hump to be as bad, but of course I'm not a developer. Maybe the extra hardware is going to be adding that much more challenge to proceedings, but I'll be surprised if it takes that long, and I'll actually be a bit concerned. I mean, I suppose you could argue, well, have we really seen the PS4 Pro being used to its full potential? And I would say, well, no, not really, because, again, I've always been of the opinion that they should be pushing the frame rate, but even if you say it as a 4K gaming machine, has it really done what it promised? I mean, Yes and no, it has with some games, but the library of games that support it is fairly limited at the moment. But of course, it's only been out a few months. I would actually expect to see much more support for the console next sort of holiday and next busy period, because then it will be a year since the console came out, and I'd kind of expect similar for Scorpio, for the launch titles to not be all that brilliant, and then we see more coming out. But 2 years, I would doubt it would be that long. But again, I'm not an analyst, he is. I'm purely going off speculation and just feeling based upon what we've seen in the past with upgraded consoles and that sort of thing. So I could be completely and utterly wrong. That's the joy of speculation. But I definitely agree that it's going to come down to communicating the true power of Scorpio clearly to people in the marketing and in the press conference and so on. Showing 4K on a live stream or even in a press conference, probably not, you know, the best option. Yeah, you can kind of see the difference, but you really have to kind of see it in person to get a feel for it. So perhaps Microsoft's going to learn from the Sony conference to the PS4 Pro and give us something that's really going to show off Scorpio at E3. They're definitely going to need the right strategy to get it off on the right foot. I'm definitely curious to see what happens. I think Scorpio has the potential to be really quite impressive. You know, it definitely is going to be the most powerful console we've ever seen by quite a large margin if the specs we've heard hold true for the rest of the machine. But of course, there are a lot of questions still remaining, again, about the games lineup, but also about the effect it's going to have on the Xbox One. And of course, the fact that the games still have to run on the Xbox One is going to put a bit of a leash around the beast that is the Xbox Scorpio. So we're going to wait and see, unfortunately, but it's definitely going to be interesting, and I think Microsoft's conference at E3 is definitely going to be one of the ones to watch to see what they bring to the table when it comes to Project Scorpio. Now, of course, I will include the source article in the description below this video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. You've had me talk for over 7 minutes. Let me hear your thoughts. I'll see you next time.